At 81, Diana Ross, Motown's eternal queen, has finally whispered a truth she spent a lifetime hiding. For decades, rumors surrounded her name, always linked to one man, Michael Jackson. Their connection defied categories. Was it maternal, romantic, or something far deeper, something that language could never fully capture? Now, after years of silence, Diana has chosen to reveal what truly bound her to the king of pop, a story that began with light but was shadowed by heartbreak, devotion, and an unspoken love that never died. This isn't just a story of fame or music. It's about two souls who found each other too soon, and maybe in another lifetime would have never let go. When Diana Ross finally opened her heart, what she revealed changed everything we thought we knew about Michael Jackson. The year was 1969. Motown Records was the beating heart of American music, filled with voices that defined a generation. And that year, a group of wide-eyed boys from Gary, Indiana, stepped into the spotlight for the first time. Among them was an 11-year-old named Michael Joseph Jackson, small in stature but carrying a voice that could shatter walls and melt hearts. Berry Gordy, Motown's legendary founder, believed the boy was the next James Brown, and perhaps even more. To give these young stars a dazzling introduction, Motown turned to its brightest diamond, Diana Ross. At the height of her fame, she was asked to present the Jackson 5 to the world, as if she had discovered them herself. It was a marketing trick. But for Michael, it was fate. From the very first moment he met her, something has stirred within him. Diana wasn't just a star. She was warmth, elegance, a living dream wrapped in sequins. When she smiled at him, Michael felt seen in a way no one had ever made him feel. Over the next year, that bond only deepened. Michael moved into Diana's home in Los Angeles, where laughter echoed through marble halls and rehearsals filled every corner. He called her Mama. He told his sisters that they'd be beautiful only if they looked like Diana. Katherine Jackson, his real mother, would later write that Michael often spoke of Diana as if she were his second mom. But there was something else, something no one could quite define, an affection that blurred the line between admiration and something far more intimate. When Diana hosted her 1971 television special, she introduced Michael to the nation not just as a young singer, but as a rising star who could stand on his own. Behind the scenes, she coached him, teaching him how to breathe confidence, how to charm the camera, how to hide the nerves behind a smile. That moment wasn't just a performance, it was a passing of the torch. For Michael, it was the birth of a lifelong devotion. He once said of her, she's mother, sister, and lover all combined in one. A single sentence that carried a lifetime of confusion, wonder, and truth. By the late 1970s, Michael Jackson was no longer the little boy who sang with his brothers. He was 19 now, caught between adolescence and adulthood, unsure of who he was without Motown's guidance. Then came The Wiz, a grand reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. This film gathered an all-black cast and promised to redefine what Hollywood could look like. Diana Ross, already a global superstar, played Dorothy. Michael, stepping nervously into his first major film role, was cast as the Scarecrow. To the outside world, it was just another movie. But for Michael, it was a dream come true, an excuse to spend every single day beside the woman who had shaped his life. The production moved to New York, far from the watchful eyes of Berry Gordy and Michael's family. For the first time, he and Diana shared the same rhythm, morning rehearsals, endless takes, and whispered conversations in quiet hotel corridors. Crew members noticed how close they had become. They saw Diana linger at Michael's apartment long after everyone else had gone home. No one dared to ask questions, but whispers spread. Diana once laughed to a friend on set, teasing, "One thing's for sure, Michael isn't gay." The Wiz eventually flopped at the box office, dismissed by critics as a glossy misfire. But for Michael, it was never about money or fame, it was about connection. When the cameras weren't rolling, they sang together, "Ease on Down the Road," "A Brand New Day." Watching them perform was like witnessing two hearts beat in the same rhythm. They weren't acting anymore. They were communicating in a language that didn't need words. In Diana's presence, Michael found the freedom to be imperfect. She saw his doubts, soothed his insecurities, and reminded him that he didn't need to be a god, just human. That comfort stayed with him long after the movie wrapped. When he began working on Off the Wall in 1979, the sound of her laughter, her voice, her touch, all of it haunted him like a melody he couldn't stop replaying. For him, Diana Ross wasn't just a mentor or a muse, she was home. The 1980s arrived, and Michael Jackson stood on the edge of immortality. His solo career was exploding, his fame stretching far beyond the boundaries of music. Yet amid the blinding lights and the screaming fans, one constant remained: Diana Ross. But their bond had matured into something deeper, something neither of them could easily define. To outsiders, it looked like admiration. To those who knew him best, it was love, the kind that lived in silence and surfaced only through songs and glances. In 1982, during an interview with Ebony magazine, Michael finally said what his heart had been carrying for years. His voice trembled slightly, but his words were clear. "It's Diana Ross. I love her. No metaphors, no disguises, just truth." He was in his early 20s. She was nearly 40. The world gasped. Some dismissed his confession as youthful fantasy. Others sensed a pain too real to be dismissed. Because those who truly knew Michael knew this wasn't infatuation, it was devotion. Behind closed doors, Diana had made promises. Not once, but twice, she reportedly accepted his proposal of marriage. She even wore the ring he gave her, showing it off like a secret between them. And then came that night, the 1984 American Music Awards. On a stage in front of millions, Diana cradled Michael's face, kissed him softly on the lips, and the crowd erupted. For a moment, it felt like the world was witnessing a confession written in gesture. Michael's eyes glistened. To him, that kiss was everything, proof that his love, after all these years, had been real. But the dream didn't last. Katherine Jackson, Michael's mother, voiced her disapproval. She warned that Diana was too old, that their union would only invite a scandal. The press pounced on the story, branding Diana as a cradle robber and tearing into her reputation. Under the weight of judgment, Diana stepped back. And then quietly, she married Norwegian businessman Arne Næss Jr. Michael didn't attend the wedding. He locked himself away, refusing interviews, avoiding studios. Friends described him as hollow, a man who smiled for the cameras but spoke to no one. He whispered to a friend, "I loved her, and I always will." In notebooks later found in his home, he had scribbled fragments of unfinished songs, love poems that would never become melodies. To the public, he was the king of pop. But behind the crown was a broken heart that never healed. By the mid-1980s, Michael Jackson ruled the world. Thriller had shattered every record and his fame had reached mythical proportions. But even at the peak of his success, a shadow followed him, the wound left by Diana Ross. He watched her build a new life with Arna Ness Jr., raise children, smile for cameras, and appear perfectly content. And though he wished her happiness, the ache never disappeared. Michael's heart had turned his pain into fuel, and from that pain came art. In 1987, he released Dirty Diana. At first, he claimed it was about groupies, women who chased fame through musicians, but those close to him knew better. The timing, the tone, the venom in his voice. It was too personal, too real. Quincy Jones, his longtime producer, warned him, "Everyone will think it's about her." Michael hesitated, then quietly changed one verse. But the soul of the song remained. It was raw, defiant, and filled with hurt, a portrait of betrayal, love, and obsession. When Diana heard it, she was furious. She stopped speaking to him for weeks. Then, as if surrendering to irony, she began referencing it in her own live shows, turning pain into playful teasing. But under the laughter was truth. They both knew what the song really meant. Their relationship became a strange dance of distance and gravity. Whenever Michael tried to move on, seen with women like Brooke Shields or Madonna, Diana would reappear. At award shows, she'd blow him kisses, wrap her arms around him, sit in his lap, as if reminding him, "You'll never belong to anyone else." Friends called it a silent war. One fought with gestures, glances, and the unbearable weight of what was left unsaid. Michael admitted in his 1988 autobiography, Moonwalk, "I've always loved Diana Ross, and I always will, but love had turned into both sanctuary and torment. She was his muse, his comfort, his curse, the one person who could make him feel infinite and broken in the same breath." The 1990s brought storms that no fame could shield. In 1993, the first public allegations of child abuse hit Michael Jackson like a thunderclap. The media turned savage. Headlines screamed guilt before a verdict was ever spoken. Police raids, interviews, talk shows, all dissecting the life of a man who once symbolized innocence. As his world began to collapse, one person stayed silently beside him, Diana Ross. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't defend him on camera. Instead, she called him, visited him, held his hand when few dared to. To the world, she was distant. To Michael, she was home again. When his own sister, LaToya, publicly accused him under her husband's manipulation, Diana's loyalty never faltered. She saw through the chaos, saw the same shy boy who once hid behind her dresses during Motown rehearsals. In 1995, when Michael collapsed during a rehearsal and was rushed to the hospital, Diana was there within hours. Witnesses said the air changed when she entered the room. Michael's breathing eased, his trembling stopped. He gripped her hand and whispered, "Don't leave me." Even his wife at the time, Lisa Marie Presley, quietly stepped aside to give Diana a space, because everyone knew her presence reached a part of him that no one else ever could. Then came 2003, the Living with Michael Jackson documentary. The accusations returned, uglier than ever. Tabloids shredded his name, turning his life into a circus of suspicion. But once again, Diana refused to abandon him. She didn't issue statements or fight the press. Her silence was her statement, one of quiet defiance. And in 2005, when Michael was finally acquitted on all counts, Diana wept privately. To her, justice wasn't about victory. It was about protecting a soul she had known since it was small and trembling. She never said it publicly, but her friends knew. I will always believe in him because I knew who he was before the world decided who he should be. June the 25th, 2009, the day the world stopped dancing. News of Michael Jackson's sudden death tore through every television, every radio, every heart that had ever beat to his music. Crowds flooded the streets. Fans wept outside hospitals. But for one woman, the pain wasn't public. It was deeply, unbearably personal. Diana Ross locked herself away and released only a short statement to the press. I can't stop crying. This is too sudden and shocking. My heart is hurting. Behind those few words was a lifetime of love, regret, and what-ifs. She had lost not just a friend or a colleague, but the boy who once looked at her like she was the center of the universe. And then came the revelation that left the world speechless. When Michael's 2002 will surfaced, a single clause rewrote the story of their bond. If his mother, Katherine Jackson, could not care for his children, Diana Ross would become their legal guardian. Not his sisters, not his brothers, not even Debbie Rowe, the biological mother of two of his kids. Diana Ross. It was a quiet but thunderous declaration. In legal ink, Michael had said what words never could, that he trusted Diana more than anyone else in the world, that the woman who guided him through the storms of fame was also the one he believed could guide his children through life. Critics questioned the choice. They pointed to her age, her past struggles, even a DUI arrest. But Michael's decision wasn't about reputation. It was about faith. Diana had raised 5 children of her own. She had protected him when no one else dared. And to him, that was all that mattered. Years passed. The world's memory of Michael grew tangled. His genius often overshadowed by a scandal. But Diana never turned her back. When the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland reignited accusations, she was 75 and still unafraid to stand by him. She wrote publicly, "I believe and trust that Michael Jackson was and is a magnificent, incredible force to me and to many others." And then, at 81, in a rare interview, Diana finally broke her silence completely. Her voice was calm, almost fragile, as she said, "Michael loved me in a way that's not easy to name." She paused, as distant, as if replaying every memory at once. She admitted that his love had been pure, but too intense, too sacred to return in the same way. "I cared for him deeply," she whispered, "but I knew if I came too close, I might break him." No theatrics, no gossip, just truth. The kind of truth that takes a lifetime to speak. Some love stories burn bright and fade. Others never even begin and still last forever. For Diana Ross and Michael Jackson, theirs was both, unfinished, eternal. And as she looked back at her life, Diana finally said what she had kept buried for over 50 years. Some bonds don't end, they simply change form. Some stories don't need a perfect ending, they simply need to be told truthfully, tenderly, and at last. For more than 5 decades, the connection between Diana Ross and Michael Jackson lived in silence, hidden behind smiles, rumors, and lyrics that only made sense when you looked closer. It wasn't just about fame or music or scandal. It was about 2 souls who found comfort in each other, one searching for guidance, the other for meaning, and how love, in its most fragile form, can survive even after goodbye. When the world misunderstood Michael, Diana understood. When the world turned its back, she remained. And when time finally softened her heart enough to speak, she didn't defend or justify, she simply remembered. Her confession at 81 wasn't an admission of romance. It was something far deeper, the acknowledgement of a bond that shaped two lives and changed music forever. And perhaps that's the real truth she carried all along, that love isn't always meant to be claimed. Sometimes it's meant to be protected, quietly, endlessly, until the very end. Now we ask you, do you believe Michael ever found peace in the love he carried for her? Share your thoughts below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because every week we uncover the untold stories behind the legends who shaped the world we live in. This was Diana Ross finally breaks her silence about Michael Jackson, the love she could never admit. A story not written in songs, but in silence.